Hey, I'm back with Harrowing's Live from the Bunker. Cut the power on this for a second and give you a little bit of feedback because I've got some feedback actually recently about some suggestions, and that's great. Um, I find this a very interesting medium. Veil and Mirror has joined us. See, welcome. Um, we can amplify each other's signals through the noise. I try to amplify other people where I can and make sure that they can be heard. And I think that's what we really need to do on Substack is do more of it. This live from the bunker is not going to be very long, but I wanted to give you a few minutes of my perspective on this because I don't think it's intuitive to everyone that one of the best things you can do, even if you can't be a paid subscriber to somebody's Substack, which is very, very helpful, by the way, you can just go ahead and amplify their signal by restacking. You can restack with a note, even better yet, where you actually say something about why you're restacking it. You can make it a note. You can also push it out on different platforms so other people get to see it who may not be on Substack, and that would draw more people here, which would help Substack overall, right? The more users it has, the more revenue gets generated. It is a new engine, a new economic engine for culture, is how it styles itself. Substack does. And so far, we're kind of ad free. People have an opportunity to say whatever they want, however they want, and there are lots of tools here to use. I've been exploring some of them, and I haven't probably even gotten down to the bottom of it. But by doing this, we help Substack get better. And we notice that, for instance, my Harrowings podcast are getting a much nicer interface on the front end without me even asking for it. It designs it for me. I expect I can get in there and tweak it. I've done that before. I selected a different thumbnail when my thumbnail looked like, or something like that. So that's another thing. Lost Vibes 100 is joined. Eric's Corner is joined. One thing I like to ask my guests is tell me how you are and where you are. And that just right there in the chat, can actually help a conversation happen between people. Somebody could come on, and it hasn't happened yet, but they could actually ask to go live with me and become my guest here on an impromptu live like I'm doing now with the three of you, Veil and Mirror, Lost Vibes 100, and Eric's Corner. None of you have written anything in the chat yet, but I would again ask, where are you and how are you? And that's simple. That's really simple to answer. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be deep. It can be very shallow, and we start a conversation, then we build a relationship with each other. And that's really, I think, what we really need in this world right now is relationships with other human beings. I was seeing something recently on one of the media I'm watching out of the corner of my eye, and there's always something going on about how young men these days, for the most part, are having no relationships with people, are not having real girlfriends. They are getting a fantasy girlfriend that satisfies their needs. And as a result, we're dealing with people becoming quite asexual, not knowing how to deal with each other, not wanting to deal with each other. It's far easier not to have to deal with another human being with all of the things that come with being human, right? So it's a danger to society in a lot of ways. This medium we have at our disposal, but we can talk about it. We can share our experiences with it. And I've had extensive experience over the years. Michigan, wonderful to have you. Wendy in the Midwest. That's how it is, I guess, for Lost Vibes 100. And it's great that you guys are out there in the middle of the country. I'm over here on the right coast, as they call it, Washington, D.C., not very far from the White House. And I stay down here in the bunker a good bit of the time. And I go on Zoom a good bit of the time to network with other people. I also do these little podcasts here. And then I go out on the street and I start filming the passing show. It's been pointed out that I might not want to do as many of those. I'm my coach, among others. And I don't know. I like doing it. And I want to do journalism, actually. It's raw journalism. It's who, what, when, and where. And it's about, just giving people a perspective of what the primary documentation is of the present moment that I'm in as history is unfolding all around us. We are at the 250th anniversary of our country, in fact. And I really don't know what to say about that entirely. I just want to try to keep things simple, and watch the passing show, document it, let other people make up their own minds. I'm not interested in manipulating anybody's perspective, although I have to at some level or another, because in sharing my own perspective, it might color theirs. When two people are brought together, if anything happens at all, both are transformed. It's a type of alchemy we're doing here. And I've been writing a lot about alchemy lately in my notes, doing a little daily schedule on that basis. And I'm having guests come on here, getting a little bit more like expansive with that. I'm looking forward to having a number of people on, but I haven't closed the deal on anybody just yet. If you'd like to be a guest here, just hit me up. You can go live now, as I said. Eric's Corner, I don't think I've seen you before. You are in Michigan, up in this Northwest, and, it's windy in the Midwest according to Lost Vibes 100. Dale Mirror has not replied, so I'm thinking may not be hearing what I'm saying or ducked in and then ducked back out. No idea, no way of telling. But this is the kind of thing we want, is a little bit of interchange with you guys. Um, so that's where you are. How are you is the other question. And that can be as shallow as you want or as deep as you want. That's a good thing to be able to talk about. Looking at the time, 11:47, I got somewhere to be at noon, so we've got about 13 minutes I could fill up. I've been actually reading up on death. Life and death are one, says the Wednesday, January 14th, 2026, Science of the Mind. And they lead off with one of Emerson's essays where he says, "There is a soul at the center of nature and over the will of every man, so that none of us can wrong the universe." And the person who was writing these was a past pastor, a retired pastor of Science of the Mind, whatever they call that, Unity Church or something. After conducting funerals and memorial services for decades, I watched the evolution, she says, of something called celebrations of life as end of life remembrances. What has happened to cause us to look at this part of our lives differently? Could it be we are growing up as a society, at least as far as our views of life and death are concerned? I think so, because for a long time, most people saw death as something not to be talked about. It was, to us, the opposite of life, and the two did not belong together. Today, we think differently. We have grown more aware of the continuum of life and the changes of form that it takes, some of which are called loss or death. We know that life and death are irrevocably joined and are but two ends of expanding cycles. Every form comes and goes, and death is but the change that takes place when one form gives way to another. Our faith and trust in the presence now allows us to accept what we can see, well as what we cannot see. Using reason and valuing intuition, we have expanded more into the largeness of ourselves. We have begun to touch the sense that we are always expanding into something greater. Good books and important teachers can help us with this, but we ourselves are the ones who must undertake the journey that will last beyond our bodies. We must one day release. And of course, this is timely as we've all been celebrating lately the life of Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead, who has passed away. He now leaves the two drummers behind, and Bruce Hornsby was sitting in with them quite a bit in the 90s. He's my hometown hero, I suppose, one of them. Williamsburg, Virginia is a place we both share. My little hat here is from the Fife and Drum Corps of Colonial Williamsburg, as most of you know, if you know me at all. And we have an observation that societal patterns are strange sometimes. Strange or always. I don't know. Not just sometimes, I don't feel. Because the push and shove of human beings against each other as we jostle each other for resources is causing a lot of the friction. And there's disproportion, right? The idea that we're all equal nodes on a network, I think, is out there. I believe that's true. But I don't think a lot of people do notice that they have an equal voice. with every other voice. I would highly recommend that people use their voices and not be shy. Come on live, and rap about it. The other day, I got Terry on here with me from out in Kansas City, Missouri, as he had said something that I thought was relevant, and therefore I went live and invited him to join me, and we did. He wasn't on camera, but we talked, and I walked all around the Washington Mall, which we could see the Capitol Dome on one end and the Washington Monument down on the other, and the museums, around me as I walked through different areas. And we just rapped about what was on our minds at the time. Um, and I think that was a really healthy thing to do. It's nice to be able to connect with people at long range. Roger Scott has joined us. So welcome. Um, Try living with a different cognitive structure than most humans. Differences becomes the norm. Okay, maybe you could explain what different cognitive structure means for you. I know a lot of people have spectrum. I probably do. I mean, when you watch The Big Bang Theory, for instance, I really identify with Sheldon more than I identify with the other characters, much to my chagrin, because I would like to be, more the normal, if you call that normal. But I know I lose people a lot of the time when I'm actually on a roll, particularly with my ideas about life, death, and the universe and everything. But yeah, yeah, it's tough. It's tough on everybody. I know when I was growing up, I always felt like an outsider, and I probably was to some extent, but so was everybody else at different levels. Everybody's got different attributes, and no attributes are less valuable than any other. The very fact we're alive means we have an opportunity to participate in this and create ripple effects in the process. We need to be our own advocates too. I'll say that. So I don't know what Eric's Corner is talking about just yet, um, but I do think the diversity can enrich us. I know that a lot of people suffer from being treated cruelly, and I've been thinking a lot about that. Mitch Horowitz, if you don't know him yet, on Substack, he's a more public figure kind of guy, writing about esoteric things. He wrote a good essay on distancing oneself from cruel people, if at all possible, not allowing them access once they've demonstrated their cruelty, because it ain't right, for one thing, and it can be very damaging, even deadly. So we need to work on our own inner cruelty um, that we might have towards one another and try to arrest that. Because if I spot it, I've got all the attributes. My shadow does. If I don't have them up in the forefront of my consciousness and my awareness, they're in my shadow. I could be, you know, as evil as anybody else. I can also be better and good, as good as anybody else. Um, it's a choice in focus, right? And decision making and what actions to take. In this case, I'm using the actions of running air through my vocal cords to make noises. And those are going into this system and being received by you all and being interpreted. And I can't control that interpretation. That's another thing on my mind. Um, so I was talking to Angel Woods, and she's making some suggestions. Her family looked at my Substack or whatever and said, well, maybe you want to do this or that or the other thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe. But right now it is what it is, and people can find me. And if they want to ask questions or make suggestions, they can do that. And certainly I will treat anybody who is a paying subscriber to Harrowings as a member of my board of directors. A founding membership makes you a chairman of the board of directors. Right now we only have one, but we could have more. Your mind and sensory experience is not filtered as normal humans naturally do. Do you want to tell me more about what that is? And I've only got a couple minutes left, 5 minutes. Sounds like you might be talking about autism or what we call autism, or maybe Asperger's syndrome. I don't know, this spectrum of this with a lot of people. I know a lot of people have synesthesia. They see colors as they hear music. That kind of thing can happen. Many different types of synesthesia, by the way. It's not just that one. Okay. Like I say, I don't have much more time. Not been diagnosed, but most likely. Yeah. And, I don't know that everybody doesn't have a different way of processing the sensory information coming in. I can't tell us somebody else is processing it. We used to have this debate when I was a kid, about whether or not when I say red, if you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing. No way telling. Maybe. Maybe I'm not even real. These days, you have to be careful about that AI generated stuff. I saw one the other day of Jon Stewart talking about the Venezuelan invasion, and it was AI. And it was actually just had a disclaimer on it, so you would know that. But if you didn't look at that disclaimer, you might not know. Attention to information input is not a choice. Well, that's the thing, right? Information comes in, and attention is something that we all can extend. But, yeah, I've heard about people who get into a situation where they're just overwhelmed by the sensory information coming in and can't filter it, and therefore they have a lot of problem in a crowded restaurant, for example. I know that for my father, his hearing got to the point where any background noise, he couldn't hear anything. But if he was watching your lips, he might be able to understand what you were saying, particularly if he had a context for what the conversation was. He could sort of interpret. But his hearing wasn't the loudness that was the problem. It was the ability of his brain inside his head to parse the phonemes. So that's something. Most people choose the level of nose blindness. I do not. Noise blindness? Yeah, you can't, right? You can't turn off the filter. Yeah. Yeah, that's very common, actually. I think that you're probably not the only one. Hopefully you've got support for it. And this will be a place for support for anybody, as far as I'm concerned. Tunes Bella has joined, and we are about to wrap up, but do feel free to watch this later. It will be pushed out on YouTube and all kinds of other platforms, as well as being spliced up into bits by the Automagic AI running behind Substack. I find that kind of lovely. I don't try to tweak it at all, but it is what it is. So I've got to go. And I hope you all have a wonderful day if you're able to. And if you're suffering or anything, reach out, extend your hand, amplify the signal through the noise, folks. That's what this little segment was about, amplification of each other's signals so that we can be heard. And I will be happy to help amplify anyone who's interested in being amplified. And I hope you will do the same for me because I really need the help. Thank you very much. And out.